So I mentioned at the beginning of Mass today, we celebrate the feast of St. Martin of Tours, who lived in the 300s when the church was really in a state of turmoil. It was a time before, when he was born, it was a time before Christianity was accepted as the religion of the Holy Roman Empire. It was just at the end of the period where they were throwing Christians to the lions. His parents were both pagans, but by the age of 10 years old, he had heard about Christianity and he was very interested and he started to study the faith. By the time he was 15, his father, who was as a soldier, had him enrolled in the Roman army and he went to France. He served there for a while, and there's a legendary story of he had this wool cloak that was part of their military uniform, and he was riding on a horse, and he came upon a beggar who was shivering in the cold with blue lips and barely any clothing on, and he looked up at him. He had no money to give him, so he took his sword out and took his military cloak and cut it in half and gave half of it to this poor shivering man. He rode on, and when the other soldiers saw him, they laughed at him because his cloak was so tattered and torn in half. That night he went to sleep and he had a dream. And he saw Jesus as the old man wrapped in that cloak. And Jesus turned and looked to the others who were around him and said, "Martin, my servant, has cloaked me with his own clothing." From that day on, he was touched by God so much that he started to wonder why he was in the military service, and he decided that he needed to get out. He was mostly in a ceremonial guard, kind of like the palace guard. But when a war broke out and he was supposed to go and fight in that war, he told his commanding officer, "I can't do it. I need to leave this kind of earthly battle and become part of a spiritual battle." They thought him a coward and they threw him in jail. And he said, "I'm not afraid to go into battle. Put me on the front lines without any weapons and I will go. I'm not afraid to die, but I won't kill." And so they put him out on the front lines. And before the war actually broke out, they had a peace arrangement. And he was mustered out of the army and went on to become a priest, and from there to become a bishop. Today, he's the patron saint of soldiers, and it's interesting because he was a conscientious objector. Today, we celebrate Veterans Day and honor all of those who have gone before us, who have served in the military, all of the branches, those who have fought and some died to protect the freedoms we have, the freedom to practice our religion, the freedom to speak our mind, the freedom to live lives, the kind of lives that the pilgrims came here in the first place to be able to come and worship God as they saw fit. Make no doubt about it, we are in a war. It's a different kind of war. As it says in Ephesians, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the forces of evil in the heavenly places, the forces of evil that are all around us. Look at what's happened to our country. Our families are falling apart because we've forgotten that God created us to be man and woman, to be married and to have children. One of the primary purposes of being married is to be able to have children, to populate the earth, to serve others. We've forgotten what's important. There's a lot of tragedies in war. During the 11 years of the Vietnam War, 58,000 people gave their lives, soldiers. 240,000 people have died so far this year from coronavirus. Those are huge numbers, but nothing compared to the fact that the latest numbers for abortions, that 862,000 babies were killed in 2017 due to abortion. I don't hear anyone on either side of the debate talking about working with the young people, the young men and the young women, to get away from things like the evil of pornography. I don't hear anyone on either side of the table talking about teaching young people that sex is not recreation, that it's a sacred gift from God to be able to bear children. We need to bring the fight to the altar. We need to pray like we've never prayed before. We need to let our nation know what's really important. And it's not just all about abortion. There are so many other things that are going on in our world. Look at the, the immigration issue. They villainized people that are coming here as immigrants. Some of them are refugees. Some of them are running from countries where the drug cartels and the gangs roam the streets. And they know that if they don't get their kids out of that neighborhood, that their kids will be drafted into the drug gangs and probably either be killed or kill someone else. I don't know about you, but I know what my father would do if he knew that I was at risk of being forced to do something like that. He would take me and run as far as and fast as he could. And if he had to climb a wall or dig under a fence, he would do it to make sure that his family was safe. All the rhetoric, we forget the fact that of all the people that are here illegally, 10 million people, 40% of them came here legally, at least at first. Maybe their visas expired or they stayed too long. The issues are not simple, but right and wrong is. We need to dig deep to understand what's going on in our country, starting with our media and all of the garbage they put on TV. And make sure that we stand up for what's right and let our voices be heard. We are in a battle. When I was confirmed back in the 8th grade, I remember the bishop came up, and as he rubbed the oil on our face, he slapped us on the face gently. It was a sign that we were about to endure pain for the sake of the cross, and that we were about to be enrolled as soldiers in the army of Christ. It's time we taught the next generation that it's time to fight for what's right and to drop to our knees and fight like a man.